The Defiance shook as another Zephyrian energy beam passed too close to their hull. Captain Morrison gripped his chair and watched the tactical display light up with enemy contacts. 12 ships closing from the port side, Ryan Clark said, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. Their lead ship is charging weapons. Lisa, can you give me more speed? Morrison called to engineering. I'm already pushing the engines past their limits, Captain. Any more and we'll blow the containment field. Amy Martinez looked up from her science station. The cube is still glowing. I think it's trying to help, but I don't understand how. Morrison made a decision that went against everything he learned in the academy. Lisa, shut down our weapons and shields. Put all power to engines and sensors. Sir, that will leave us defenseless. No, it will make us invisible. The Defiance went dark just as the Zephyrian squadron closed in. Without active sensors and weapons, the human ship looked like debris on the alien screens. Admiral Zethan studied the readings from his flagship. Where did they go? Unknown, sir. They vanished from our sensors. Ships don't just vanish. Search the area. The crystal ships spread out, hunting for their prey. They passed within a few hundred meters of the Defiance without seeing her. Morrison held his breath until the enemy formation moved away. Nice work, everyone. Amy, what can you tell me about that fortress ahead? On the screen, a massive Zephyrian battle station hung in space like a deadly jewel. It was the size of a small moon covered with weapons and shields. It's guarding the passage to Corvin space, Amy said. We can't go around it. The route is too narrow. Then we go through it. Ryan stared at his captain. Sir, that thing has enough firepower to destroy a planet. It also has something else, Morrison said, studying the tactical readouts. Overconfidence. He opened a channel to the entire crew. Listen up, everyone. We're about to do something really stupid. Lisa, I need you to make our ship look like it's falling apart. That won't be hard, sir. It already is falling apart. Perfect. Amy, can you make the cube do that energy thing again? I can try. Morrison turned to Ryan. When I give the word, fire everything we have at their main shield generator. One shot. Make it count. The Defiance limped toward the massive station, leaking coolant and broadcasting distress signals. To the Zephyrians, it looked like a damaged human ship trying to surrender. Incoming vessel, the station commander said. This is Fortress Prime. State your intentions. Morrison opened the channel. This is the UES Defiance. Our engines are failing. We request permission to surrender. Permission granted. Proceed to Docking Bay 7. The human ship drifted closer, looking helpless and beaten. The station's massive guns tracked it, but didn't fire. Why waste ammunition on a ship that was already finished? Now, Morrison whispered. Amy. Put her hands on the cube. It flared with brilliant light, and that strange energy flowed through the ship again. Ryan fired both railguns at the exact same spot on the station's shields. The concentrated fire punched through the shield like a needle through cloth. For just a moment, a small section of the fortress was unprotected. Lisa, ramming speed! The Defiance shot forward, powered by engines that should have exploded from the strain. She hit the station's hull and kept going, tearing through armor, and bulkheads like they were made of paper. The fortress shook as the human ship carved a path through its interior. Emergency lights flashed. Alarms screamed. Crystal beings ran for their lives as sections of their mighty station came apart around them. The Defiance burst out the other side, damaged but intact. Status report, Morrison called out. Hull breaches. On decks 3 and 5, Lisa reported. Life support is stable. Engines are somehow still working. The cube saved us, Amy said, looking at the artifact with wonder. It reinforced our hull just before impact. Behind them, Fortress Prime was breaking apart. The human ship had hit something vital, and the massive station was tearing itself apart. Impossible, Admiral Zethan said as he watched the destruction. No ship that small could destroy a fortress. The humans did, his aide replied. Zethan's crystal skin flashed angry red. Then we underestimated them. Send word to all fleets. These humans are not the primitive species we thought. The Defiance limped away from the wreckage and jumped to faster-than-light speed. Ahead lay Corvin space and new dangers. Back in the Sol system, the battle was getting desperate. Admiral Sullivan watched her tactical display and counted the losses. 3/4 of Earth's fleet was gone. The enemy was closing in on the inner planets. "Ma'am," Captain Hayes reported, "the Corvins are requesting our surrender." "What did you tell them?" "Nothing printable, ma'am," Sullivan smiled grimly. "Good. Deploy the asteroid platforms." Hidden throughout the asteroid belt were dozens of mining stations that had been converted to weapons platforms. When they activated, they added their firepower to the human defense. General Korath watched the new contacts appear on his screens. More tricks. These humans are resourceful. But doomed, his tactical officer said. Perhaps. But they're making us work for our victory. The Corvin general was beginning to understand something his allies had missed. The humans weren't just fighting for their lives. They were fighting to prove a point. Every ship they lost was a message. We will not go quietly. It was a message that worried him. The Defiance dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Corvan space. Immediately, their sensors lit up with contacts. Hundreds of massive warships patrolled this region. "They're built like flying fortresses," Ryan observed. "Thick armor, heavy weapons, lots of shields. How do we get past them?" Morrison asked. Amy studied the enemy formations. "They move in rigid patterns, very predictable. If we time it right, we might slip through. Or we might get vaporized," Tony Richards added from his position at the Marine station. "That's always a possibility," Morrison agreed. "Lisa, how are our stealth systems?" "Barely working. The damage from the fortress fight knocked out half our cloaking field." Morrison looked at the tactical display. Dozens of possible routes through enemy space, all of them deadly. "There," he said, pointing at a narrow gap between patrol routes. "We go there, fast and quiet." The Defiance slipped into Corvin space like a ghost. The heavy enemy ships moved in their predictable patterns, never looking for something as small and fast as the human vessel. They were halfway through when everything went wrong. A Corvin patrol ship changed course without warning. It turned directly toward their position, sensors active and weapons charging. "We're spotted," Ryan said. "No, we're not," Morrison replied, studying the alien ship's movements. "They're investigating something else. Hold position. The Corvin ship approached slowly. Its captain was curious about a strange sensor reading, but not alarmed. After all, what could threaten a ship this deep in Corvin space? The alien vessel passed within 50 meters of the hidden Defiance. Morrison could see Corvin warriors on the enemy bridge through the viewports, massive beings built for war, covered in thick armor. The patrol ship moved away, its curiosity satisfied. "That was close," Ryan breathed. "Too close," Amy agreed. "We need to move faster." They pushed deeper into enemy territory, dodging patrols and avoiding the massive fleet concentrations. The cube continued to glow, sometimes pulsing brighter when danger was near. "It's like it's warning us," Amy said, studying the artifact. "Or guiding us," Morrison replied. They reached the border of Thalorian space without further incident. Ahead lay their greatest challenge yet. The Thalorians didn't just have ships and weapons. They had minds that could reach across space and crush thoughts like insects. "I'm picking up psychic interference," Amy reported. "It's getting stronger as we approach their border." Morrison felt it too, a pressure in his head like someone trying to pry open his skull. The Thalorians were probing, looking for intruders. "Everyone concentrate on something else," he ordered. "Don't think about our mission. Think about home." Lisa thought about her childhood dog. Ryan remembered playing baseball in college. Amy focused on a book she had read as a child. Tony pictured his mother's cooking. The pressure in their heads lessened but didn't disappear. They crossed into Thalorian space. The psychic attack hit them like a hammer. Morrison felt alien minds trying to invade his thoughts. Cold, ancient intelligence that wanted to know everything about him, about his mission, about the cube. "Get out of my head," he said through gritted teeth. The others were struggling too. Amy was holding her head, crying. Ryan's hands were shaking. Lisa had collapsed over her console. Only Tony seemed unaffected. "Why aren't they getting to you?" Morrison asked. Tony grinned. "Marine training, sir. We learn to compartmentalize. Lock away the important stuff and let them have the garbage." The Thalorian ships appeared around them, not approaching, just there as if they had always been there. Dark vessels that seemed to absorb light. A voice spoke in their minds. Old and tired and full of power. "Turn back, young humans. You do not understand what you carry." Morrison forced himself to speak. "We understand enough." "Do you? The first forge is not a weapon. It is a test, one your species is not ready for. Let us be the judge of that." The psychic pressure increased. Morrison felt his thoughts being pulled apart, examined, weighed. "Interesting," the voice said. "Your minds are chaotic, difficult to read. How do you function with such disorder in your thoughts?" Amy managed to speak through the pain. "We call it creativity." Creativity. The voice see. The first forge hung in space like a dark moon, its surface covered with structures that hurt to look at directly. Captain Morrison stared at it through the Defiance's view screen and felt a chill run down his spine. "It's huge," Amy Martinez whispered. "The size of Earth's moon, maybe bigger." "And old," Lisa Parker added, studying the engineering readings. "Really old. Some of these materials don't match anything in our databases." The artifact from the dead planet pulsed brighter as they approached. Lines of light ran across its dark surface, forming patterns that seemed to move when no one was looking directly at them. "The cube is responding," Amy reported. "It's like it recognizes this place." Morrison opened a channel to the crew. "All right, everyone, this is it. Tony, prep a boarding team. Amy, bring the cube. Lisa, keep the engines warm. We might need to leave fast." "Sir," Ryan Clark said from the tactical station, "I'm picking up ships on long-range sensors. Lots of them. All 3 enemy fleets are coming this way. How long do we have?" "Maybe 2 hours. 3 if we're lucky." Morrison nodded. "Then we better work fast." The Defiance docked with an ancient airlock on the forge's surface. The seal was perfect, despite being millions of years old. Air flowed through the connection, breathable but strange, carrying scents of metal and energy and something else they couldn't identify. Morrison led the team through corridors that were too wide and too tall for humans. The walls glowed with soft light that seemed to come from nowhere. Their footsteps echoed in the empty spaces. "This place feels alive," Tony Richards said, his rifle ready despite the obvious futility of bringing weapons to a place like this. They found what they were looking for in the heart of the station, a vast chamber filled with machinery that defied understanding. Crystals the size of buildings floated in mid-air. Energy flowed between them in rivers of pure light, and in the center of it all a platform waited. "That's where the cube goes," Amy said, though she couldn't explain how she knew. As they approached the platform, something spoke to them. Not words, but direct meaning placed into their minds. "Welcome, young ones. You have come far." "Who are you?" Morrison asked aloud. "I am the Guardian. I was left here to wait for someone worthy to claim the Forge's power." "Are we worthy?" Amy asked. The Guardian was quiet for a moment. "That remains to be seen. Tell me, why have you come here?" Morrison thought about Earth burning in space, about Admiral Sullivan fighting impossible odds, about billions of humans who might die in the next few hours. To save our people. At what cost? Any cost. Even your own lives? Morrison looked at his crew. Lisa with her steady hands and brilliant mind. Amy with her curiosity and courage. Ryan with his calm competence. Tony with his unshakable loyalty. Yes, he said simply. The Guardian seemed to consider this. The species that built this place gave the same answer. They called themselves the Builders. Like you, they were young and fierce and determined. Like you, they faced enemies with superior numbers and technology. What happened to them? They used the Forge. They won their war, and they learned that some victories change you forever. Amy stepped forward, holding the cube. How does it work? Place the key upon the platform. The Forge will activate. Every piece of advanced technology within 10,000 light-years will cease to function. Ships will go dark. Computers will fail. Civilizations that depend on their machines will collapse. Including ours, Lisa said. Including yours. The Forge does not distinguish between friend and enemy. It simply ends the age of technology and forces all species to begin again. Morrison felt the weight of the decision. How long will the effect last? Until each species learns to rebuild. Some recover quickly, others never recover at all. The Builders themselves took 3,000 years to reach their former level of technology. By then, they were no longer the same people. But they survived? They survived. Their enemies did not. The Forge gave the Builders victory, but it cost them their innocence. They became guardians, watchers, protectors of younger species. They could never again be the fierce, chaotic people they once were. Morrison understood. Using the Forge would save humanity, but it would also change them. They would win the war, but lose something essential about themselves. There's another way, Amy said suddenly. She was staring at the cube, which was pulsing with urgent light. The Forge doesn't have to shut down all technology. It can be selective. Explain, the Guardian said. Amy touched the cube, and information flooded her mind. It can target specific types of technology, advanced AIs, faster than light drives, psychic amplifiers. We could disable their advantages without destroying everything. That is more difficult. It requires precise calibration, and it requires a sacrifice. What kind of sacrifice? Morrison asked, though he was afraid he already knew. One of you must remain here to guide the process. The human mind is chaotic enough to make the fine distinctions needed, but that person will become part of the Forge. They will live, but they will never leave this place. Morrison looked at his crew again. He opened his mouth to volunteer, but Amy spoke first. I'll do it. No, Morrison said immediately. Yes, I understand the cube better than anyone. I've been studying it for weeks. It has to be me. Lisa grabbed Amy's arm. There has to be another way. There isn't, and we're running out of time. Ryan's voice came over their communicators. Captain, enemy fleets are approaching fast. Admiral, Korath's ships will be here in 30 minutes. Morrison felt the weight of command. The decision was his to make. Amy, are you sure about this? She nodded, though tears were running down her face. I'm sure. But promise me something. When this is over, when humanity rebuilds, remember why we did this. Don't let the galaxy forget that sometimes the weak can beat the strong if they're willing to pay the price. Morrison saluted her. I promise. Amy placed the cube on the platform. It sank into the surface like it was made of liquid metal. The entire chamber lit up with brilliant light. Beginning selective shutdown, the Guardian announced. All personnel not required for calibration should return to their ships. Morrison, Lisa, and Tony ran for the airlock. Behind them, Amy stood at the control station, her hands moving over surfaces that responded to her thoughts. Light flowed around her like water. They reached the Defiance just as the first enemy ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Admiral Korath's flagship led a force of over 1,000 vessels. Behind him came the crystal ships of the Zephyrians and the dark vessels of the Thalorians. "Surrender, humans!" Koreth's voice boomed across space. "You have fought well, but this ends now." Morrison opened a channel. "Admiral, with respect, go to hell." The enemy fleets moved in for the kill. Thousands of ships against one damaged human vessel. That's when the forge activated. A wave of energy spread outward from the ancient station at the speed of light. It touched the enemy ships and kept going, racing across the galaxy. One by one, the alien vessels went dark. Their faster-than-light drives shut down. Their artificial intelligences fell silent. Their advanced targeting systems failed. The crystal ships lost their perfect coordination. The psychic amplifiers that gave the Thalorians their mental powers went dead. In the Sol system, Admiral Sullivan watched in amazement as the enemy fleet suddenly stopped moving. Ships that had been closing in for the kill now drifted helplessly in space. "Ma'am," Captain Hayes reported, "their ships have lost power, all of them." "What about our ships?" "We're affected too, but not as badly. Our engines are still working. Our weapons are functional." Sullivan smiled fiercely. "All ships attack pattern Delta. Let's finish this." The human vessels, still powered by simpler technology, fell on the disabled enemy fleet like wolves on sheep. Back at the first forge, the remaining alien ships tried to understand what had happened. Admiral Koreth found his mighty dreadnought reduced to basic life support and emergency power. "What is this?" he demanded. "This," Morrison replied, "is what happens when you push humans too far. You've doomed yourself as well. Your technology is also affected. Maybe, but we'll adapt. We always do." Elder Thane's mental voice was weak without his psychic amplifiers, but still audible. "You have changed the galaxy forever, young human. Civilizations will fall because of this." "And new ones will rise," Morrison replied. "Better ones, I hope." The Defiants turned away from the disabled fleet and headed for home. Behind them, the first forge pulsed with new energy. Amy's consciousness was part of it now, guiding its power, making sure it did exactly what humanity needed. As they traveled back toward Earth, Morrison received reports from across human space. The enemy fleets were surrendering everywhere. Without their technological advantages, they were no match for human determination and adaptability. But the cost was becoming clear too. Human technology was affected, though not as severely as their enemies. It would take years to rebuild what was lost. Maybe decades. Was it worth it? Lisa asked as they watched the stars stream past. Morrison thought about Amy, now part of an ancient machine, keeping watch over the galaxy. He thought about Earth, free at last from the threat that had hung over it. He thought about humanity's future, uncertain, but unbroken. "Ask me in 100 years," he said. The war was over. Humanity had won. But the real test was just beginning. Now they had to prove. The wave of energy from the first forge spread across the galaxy like ripples in a pond. But these ripples carried the power to change everything. On Earth, Admiral Kate Sullivan watched her tactical display as enemy ships went dark one by one. "Ma'am," Captain Hayes said, his voice filled with wonder, "their entire fleet is dead in space." Sullivan nodded grimly. "What about our ships?" "We've lost some systems, but we're still mobile, still armed." "Then finish them. Human ships, powered by simpler technology that the forge had barely touched, moved in among the disabled alien vessels. Some enemy crews surrendered immediately. Others tried to fight with emergency systems and handheld weapons. It didn't matter. The technological advantage that had made the aliens seem invincible was gone. Now it was just beings against beings, and humans had never backed down from that kind of fight. General Koreth sat in his powerless command chair and watched human fighters approach his flagship. His massive dreadnought, which had destroyed dozens of human ships just hours before, now couldn't even move. "Sir," his aide said, "they're requesting our surrender." Koreth thought about the battle he had just witnessed. Humans fighting against impossible odds, never giving up, never accepting defeat. He had expected to crush them easily. Instead, they had somehow turned the galaxy upside down. "Signal surrender," he said quietly. Tell them it was an honor to fight them." Across space, Admiral Zethan came to the same conclusion. His beautiful crystal ships were nothing more than expensive coffins now. Without their advanced systems, they were helpless. Elder Thane of the Thalorians found himself in the strangest position of all. For the first time in centuries, his mind was his own. No psychic amplifiers, no connection to the vast mental network that had linked his people. Just his own thoughts, alone and quiet. "It's almost peaceful," he said to himself. In the depths of space, Captain Morrison guided the Defiance toward home. Their ship had been affected by the Forge, too. But Lisa Parker's engineering skills kept them moving. Human technology, built to be repaired with spare parts and determination, proved more resilient than the aliens' perfect machines. "Captain," Ryan Clark said from the tactical station, "I'm picking up a transmission from Earth. President Brooks's." Voice filled the bridge. "Jake, this is Helen. Tell me you're all alive." "We're here, Madam President. Amy Martinez is..." "She stayed behind to operate the Forge. She saved us all." Brooks was quiet for a moment. "I'll make sure she's remembered. What's your status?" "Heading home, ma'am, but it's going to be a slow trip. Half our systems are down." "Take your time, Captain. We'll be here when you get back." The journey home took 3 weeks instead of 3 days. All across human space, the same story was playing out. Ships limping home on backup power, space stations running on emergency systems, colonies making do with basic technology. But they were making do. Humans had lived without advanced technology before. They could do it again. The aliens were having a harder time. Their civilizations had grown dependent on machines to do everything. Without their technology, some of them could barely function. On the Zephyrian homeworld, cities went dark as their power systems failed. The crystalline beings who had engineered themselves to interface perfectly with their technology found themselves lost without it. The Corvan military, built around overwhelming technological superiority, collapsed almost overnight. Without their advanced weapons and ships, they were just another species trying to figure out how to survive. The Thalorians faced a different crisis. For millennia, they had used psychic amplifiers to link their minds together. Now, cut off from each other, they had to remember how to be individuals. But not everyone gave up. On 1,000 worlds, beings who remembered older ways began to rebuild. They started with simple tools, basic chemistry, mechanical devices that didn't need computers to work. Morrison and his crew reached Earth to find a world transformed. The great cities still stood, but they were quieter now. Humans had adapted, quickly, as they always did. Solar panels and wind generators powered essential systems. Old combustion engines pulled trains and trucks. People had gone back to doing things with their hands that machines had done for them. "It's not so bad," Lisa said as they walked through New Geneva. "Kind of peaceful, actually." President Brooks met them at the spaceport. She looked tired but determined. "How bad is it?" Morrison asked. "We've lost about 60% of our advanced technology. But we're managing. The colonies are all reporting in. Everyone's alive. Everyone's working to rebuild." "What about the aliens?" Brooks smiled. "That's the interesting part. Some of their governments have collapsed completely. Others are asking us for help." "Help? Turns out we're the only species in the galaxy that remembers how to live without machines doing everything for us. They want to learn." Morrison thought about that. Humanity, the youngest and weakest species in the galaxy, now teaching the ancient powers how to survive. "There's something else," Brooks said. We've been getting messages from the First Forge, from Amy. Morrison's heart jumped. Is she all right? She's alive. Changed, but alive. She says the Forge is stable now. The effect will last until each species learns to rebuild responsibly. But she can monitor things. Make sure nobody tries to shortcut the process. Can we talk to her? She's asked to speak with you specifically. They went to the communications center, where a direct link had been established with the First Forge. Amy's voice came through clearly, though there was something different about it now. Jake? Is that you? I'm here, Amy. How are you holding? Up? It's strange. I can feel the entire galaxy. Every ship, every world, every person trying to rebuild, and I can help them, guide them, make sure they don't make the same mistakes their ancestors did. Are you happy? Amy was quiet for a moment. Happy is the wrong word, but I'm at peace. I'm doing something important, something that will help everyone. Do you regret it? No. We proved something, Jake. We proved that will is stronger than power. That determination can beat any odds. The galaxy won't forget that. 1 year later, Morrison stood on the observation deck of the rebuilt UES Defiance and watched Earth's first new space station being constructed. It was smaller than the old ones, simpler, but it was theirs, built with human hands and human ingenuity. The galaxy was rebuilding too, but slowly. The great powers that had once threatened humanity were struggling with the basics of civilization. Some had adapted better than others. The Corvins, with their military discipline, had organized themselves into work groups and were making steady progress. They had sent envoys to Earth asking for technical advice. The Zephyrians were having a harder time. Their perfect crystal bodies weren't designed for manual labor. Many of them had died, but the survivors were learning to be more than living computers. The Thalorians had perhaps changed the most. Without their mental network, they had rediscovered individuality. Some of them had even developed something resembling humor. Captain, Lisa Parker said, joining him at the observation window. We just received a message from the Corvin embassy. General Korath wants to meet with you. Morrison was surprised. What does he want? To thank you, apparently, and to ask a favor. They met in Geneva, in a simple room with basic furniture. Korath looked different without his advanced armor and weapons, smaller, more vulnerable, but his eyes still held the intelligence that had made him a feared military leader. Captain Morrison, he said, I owe you an apology. For trying to destroy my species? For underestimating yours. We thought power meant having the biggest guns and the most ships. You showed us it means having the will to fight when fighting. Seems hopeless. Morrison poured 2 cups of coffee from an old-fashioned pot. What's the favor you want to ask? My people are struggling to rebuild. We've been warriors for so long we've forgotten how to be anything else. We need teachers. You want humans to teach Corvins? I want humans to teach everyone. You're the only species that remembers how to start over, how to build something from nothing. Morrison thought about it. What makes you think we'd help the people who tried to wipe us out? Korath was quiet for a moment. Because that's what humans do. You help people who need help, even if they don't deserve it. It's part of what makes you strong. Over the following years, human teachers spread across the galaxy. They taught basic engineering to Zephyrians who had forgotten how to build without computers. They showed Corvins how to farm and manufacture goods. They helped Thalorians learn to communicate without telepathy. It wasn't easy. There were conflicts and misunderstandings. Some species resented needing human help. Others tried to take shortcuts back to their old technology. The Coalition staging area was bigger than anything Jake Morrison had ever seen. Thousands of ships from dozens of different species filled the space around a massive artificial station. Each species had their own section, their own docking bays, their own support systems. The human fleet looked tiny by comparison. Captain, Communications Officer Beth Williams said, "We're being hailed by Coalition Command. Put them through." The main screen flickered and showed an alien face that looked like it was carved from stone. The creature had 4 eyes and spoke in a voice that sounded like grinding metal. "Human vessels, you are assigned to Combat Wing. 47 under the command of War Leader Thane of the Cronus Empire. You will observe standard Coalition protocols at all times. Your first mission briefing will occur in 6 hours." The transmission ended without giving Jake a chance to respond. "Friendly bunch," Navigator Paul Jackson said. Lieutenant Commander Tony Rivera looked up from his engineering station. "Captain, I'm reading the energy signatures from the other ships in our combat wing. We're grouped with 3 other species. All of them are reading as technologically primitive by Coalition standards." Admiral Blake's voice came through the comm system. "All captains, report to the Valor's Pride for immediate briefing." Jake left Commander Alex Thompson in charge and took a shuttle to Admiral Blake's ship. The briefing room was crowded with human officers and a few aliens he hadn't seen before. War Leader Thane stood at the front of the room. He was nearly 8 feet tall and covered in natural armor plating that looked like it could stop a missile. His voice rumbled when he spoke. "Combat. Wing 47 has one purpose," he said. "You will engage Devourer patrol units and keep them busy while real combat forces prepare for major operations. This is not a complicated mission. You attack, you fight, you die with honor." Captain Julie Davis raised her hand. "War Leader, what kind of support will we receive?" "Support?" Thane looked confused. "You have weapons. You have ships. What more support could a warrior need?" Jake exchanged glances with Admiral Blake. "What about tactical information? Enemy capabilities? Battle plans?" "Battle plans are simple," Thane said. "You fly toward the enemy. You shoot at the enemy. You keep shooting until they are dead or you are dead. This is how all species fight. This is how warriors have always fought." Dr. Lisa Grant had been studying her translation tablet. "War Leader, could you tell us about Devourer tactics? How do they typically engage enemy forces?" Thane's 4 eyes focused on her. "The Devourers are cunning but predictable. They use speed and deception to avoid direct combat. They strike weak points and retreat before honorable forces can respond, but they cannot stand against determined assault." After the briefing, the human officers gathered in Admiral Blake's private conference room. "Did anyone else notice that he basically described every defeat in the Coalition records as a victory?" Commander Thompson said. Admiral Blake nodded. "The Coalition has been losing this war for centuries, but they keep using the same tactics. Because they believe anything else would be dishonorable." Jake had been thinking about something. "Admiral, I want to split our forces for the next few days. We need to observe how the different Coalition species actually fight." "What do you have in mind?" "I want Thompson to shadow some Cronus operations. Julie can observe the Vorthan swarm units. I'll watch how the other Combat Wing 47 species handle themselves. We need to understand what we're dealing with before we commit to any strategy." Admiral Blake agreed. Over the next 3 days, the human officers spread out across the Coalition fleet to observe and learn. Commander Thompson returned with detailed reports about Cronus battle methods. "Captain, they're incredibly powerful," he told Jake. "Their ships are massive, heavily armored, and armed with weapons that could destroy a small moon. But they're also completely inflexible." Thompson showed Jake video recordings from his observation mission. "Watch this engagement with a small Devourer scout force." The recording showed 12 Cronus battleships arranged in a perfect formation. They moved forward slowly and steadily, firing constantly at 3 much smaller Devourer vessels. "The Cronus ships are winning through pure firepower," Thompson continued. "But look at how they move." Jake watched the tactical display. The Cronus formation never changed. They maintained perfect spacing and fired in coordinated volleys. It was impressive and completely predictable. The Devourers are just staying out of range and picking off the slower Cronus ships one by one, Jake realized. Exactly. The Cronus never adapt. They never change formation or try different tactics. They just keep doing what they've always done, until they win through superior numbers or lose everything. Captain Julie Davis had similar observations about the Vorthan swarm. They're fast, Captain. Faster than anything I've ever seen. Their ships can change direction instantly and accelerate to incredible speeds. She showed her own recordings. But watch their attack patterns. Jake saw Vorthan fighters performing elaborate aerial displays around Devourer positions. They moved in complex spirals and loops, their formations looking almost like artwork. It's beautiful, Jake said. It's also completely useless, Julie replied. Those formations are ceremonial. They're based on ancient Vorthan mating dances, or something. The pilots spend more time looking graceful than actually hitting targets. Jake watched as the Vorthan fighters were systematically destroyed by Devourer defensive systems that had obviously learned to predict their elaborate maneuvers. Let me guess, Jake said. They refused to change their tactics because it would violate their cultural traditions. Right. Honor and tradition are more important than actually winning. Jake's own observations of the other Combat Wing 47 species were equally frustrating. Every species followed rigid patterns that hadn't changed in centuries. Some relied on superior numbers, others used specialized weapons or unique biological abilities, but none of them adapted or improvised. Meanwhile, Dr. Grant had been analyzing captured Devourer technology with Tony Rivera's help. "Captain," she reported, "we've made an important discovery. The Devourer ships use adaptive artificial intelligence systems for combat decisions." Tony nodded enthusiastically. "The AI studies enemy tactics and develops counters automatically. But here's the interesting part. The system is designed to analyze known galactic warfare patterns." "What does that mean?" Jake asked. "It means the Devourer AI has extensive databases on how every coalition species fights," Dr. Grant explained. "It can predict Cronus formations, anticipate Vorthan maneuvers, and counter every known tactical approach." Jake felt excitement building. "But it doesn't have data on human tactics." "Right. Because humans aren't in their database. We've never fought in this war before, and our military development was completely independent of galactic civilization." Tony was practically bouncing with enthusiasm. "Captain, I've been studying the basic energy weapons they gave us. The technology is ancient by our standards, but it's also incredibly standardized. Every coalition species uses exactly the same systems. And that's bad because standardization means predictability. The Devourer AI knows exactly how these weapons work, what their limitations are, and how to counter them. But there's something else." Tony activated his tablet and showed technical specifications. "These systems were designed to be tamper-proof. The Coalition considers modifying military equipment to be a serious crime, but they're only tamper-proof against known modification techniques." Jake was beginning to understand. "You think you can reprogram them?" "I think I can do a lot more than that. I think I can turn these basic energy systems into something the Devourer AI has never seen before." Dr. Grant had more information. "I've been monitoring Coalition communications. There's going to be a major engagement tomorrow. Combat Wing 47 is being sent to support a defensive action around the Kepler mining colony." Admiral Blake's voice came through the comm system. "All captains, emergency briefing in 1 hour. We have our first mission." The briefing was held aboard War Leader Thane's flagship. The massive alien stood before a holographic display showing the tactical situation. "The Devourers are attacking the Kepler mining colony with a force of 50 vessels," he announced. "Coalition forces will establish a defensive perimeter and engage the enemy in honorable combat." Jake studied the tactical display. The Coalition plan was straightforward to the point of stupidity. They would form up in 3 battle lines and wait for the Devourers to attack. Then they would engage in a direct firefight until one side or the other was completely destroyed. "Combat Wing 47 will take position on the left flank," Thane continued. "You will hold your assigned positions and follow standard engagement protocols at all times." Captain Davis raised her hand. War leader, what if the Devourers try to outflank us? Then you will hold your position and die with honor while the main force adjusts to counter the flanking maneuver. After the briefing, Admiral Blake gathered her officers. Any thoughts on this brilliant strategy? Jake looked around the room at the faces of his fellow humans. I think it's time we stopped pretending to be part of their system. What do you mean? Admiral Blake asked. I mean, tomorrow we're going to find out if human tactics work against an enemy that's never seen them before. Tony Rivera was grinning. Captain, give me 6 hours and I can reprogram. The hidden shipyards of Proxima Centauri hummed with activity that defied normal physics. Human workers moved between partially constructed vessels that flickered in and out of existence, building ships that could exist in multiple realities. At the same time, Admiral Ron Clark stood on the observation deck of the Quantum Dawn, watching his crews prepare for what everyone knew would be the final battle. Below him, engineers wearing quantum field generators worked on weapons that fired backwards through time and shields that protected against attacks from parallel dimensions. Admiral, called Commander Amy Foster from her station, we're receiving reports from our scouts. The Council Armada is massive, over 10,000 ships from every member species. Ron nodded grimly. The Council had spent months gathering the largest military force in galactic history. They were coming with everything they had, determined to end the human threat once and for all. Dr. Maria Rodriguez appeared next to him, her form shimmering slightly as she existed in several probability states simultaneously. The months of quantum exposure had changed her, just like it had changed all of them. She could now process information from multiple timelines at once, seeing the consequences of actions before they were taken. Admiral, the quantum evolution process is accelerating beyond our predictions, Rodriguez reported. Every human exposed to the field is developing enhanced consciousness. We're becoming something the galaxy has never seen. What exactly are we becoming? Ron asked, looking at his own hands. He could see them existing in 17 different positions, each one corresponding to a choice he might make in the next few seconds. We're transcending linear existence, Rodriguez explained. Normal consciousness operates in a single timeline, experiencing cause and effect in sequence. But quantum consciousness allows us to perceive and interact with multiple probability branches simultaneously. Captain Dan Murphy walked up to join them, moving through the air as much as across the deck. Dan had volunteered for the most extreme quantum exposure experiments, and now he could manipulate his physical state at will. His hand reached across the room to touch a control panel, while his body remained next to them. The crew is ready. Admiral, Dan reported. All ships are equipped with quantum field generators. We have 300 vessels that can exist in superposition states. Against 10,000 council ships, Commander Foster added quietly. Numbers don't matter anymore, Rodriguez said with confidence. We're not fighting them in normal space-time. We're fighting in probability space, where the outcome of a battle can be changed by choosing which reality we make permanent. Ron studied the tactical displays showing the approaching Council Armada, but thanks to his quantum-enhanced consciousness, he could see more than just their current positions. He could see every possible formation they might use, every strategy they might employ, every weakness they might develop. They're fighting yesterday's war, he realized. They're thinking in terms of linear tactics, ship versus ship, weapon versus shield. But we can attack them from probability angles that don't exist in their reality. Dr. Rodriguez nodded. Exactly. While they're planning for a traditional space battle, we'll be striking from quantum superposition states. We can be everywhere and nowhere at once. Captain Sue Martin joined the group, her consciousness now distributed across multiple quantum states. She could process tactical information from dozens of different probability branches, making her one of the most effective ship commanders humanity had ever produced. Admiral, I've been running probability analysis on the coming battle, Sue reported. In standard space, we lose in 98% of scenarios. But in quantum space, we can achieve victory in over 70% of probability branches. How? Ron asked. By not playing by their rules, Sue replied. The Council thinks in terms of fixed positions, predictable weapon ranges, and linear time. But we can attack them from the past, defend from the future, and exist in multiple locations simultaneously. The quantum evolution had changed humanity in ways they were still discovering. Commander Foster could now communicate across vast distances by entangling her consciousness with other quantum-enhanced humans. Captain Murphy could phase his ship through solid matter by adjusting its probability state. And Rodriguez could see the mathematical structure of reality itself, manipulating quantum fields like a musician playing an incredibly complex instrument. There's something else, Rodriguez said, her voice carrying harmonics from multiple timelines. The quantum field isn't just changing our abilities, it's changing our nature. We're becoming less like individual humans and more like distributed consciousness existing across probability space. Are we still human? Ron asked, the question that had been haunting him for weeks. We're what humans become when they evolve beyond the limitations of linear existence, Rodriguez replied. We're still us, but we're also more than us. Lieutenant Gary Adams approached from the communications station, his form flickering between different quantum states. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Council Armada. They want to negotiate. Ron smiled, seeing the communication in multiple probability branches simultaneously. Put them through. The hologram of Council Prime Zerath 9 appeared in the command center, but now Ron could see the alien leader's fear as a tangible thing existing across multiple dimensions. The Hive Collective had ruled through unity and overwhelming numbers for thousands of years, but they had never encountered an enemy that could exist outside normal space-time. Admiral Clark, Zerath 9 said, his 1,000 voices carrying less certainty than before. The Council offers humanity one final chance at surrender. Submit to containment protocols, and your species will be preserved. Preserved as primitives living in caves, Ron replied, his quantum consciousness allowing him to see the full scope of the Council's proposal across multiple timelines. Thanks, but we'll pass. You cannot win, Zerath 9 insisted. Our armada outnumbers your fleet 30-1. You're counting wrong, Rodriguez said, stepping forward into the hologram's field of view. You're counting ships in linear space, but we don't exist in linear space anymore. To demonstrate, she gestured toward the viewport. The Council forces could see 300 human ships spread across the star system. But from the quantum perspective, Ron could see those same ships existing in thousands of different configurations, each one representing a different probability state. What you see is what we choose to show you, Rodriguez continued. But what we actually are is something your linear minds can't comprehend. Zerath 9's compound eyes focused on Rodriguez, and Ron could sense the alien leader's growing terror. What have you become? We've become what you forced us to become, Rodriguez replied simply. You tried to contain our evolution. So we evolved beyond the need for containment. You tried to limit our technology, so we became technology. You tried to destroy us, so we learned to exist in states where destruction is just one possibility among many. The hologram flickered as Zerath 9 processed this information. The Council will not permit such dangerous evolution to continue. The Council no longer has a choice in the matter, Ron said firmly. You started a war with linear thinking beings, but you're about to finish it with quantum consciousness entities who can rewrite the rules of reality itself. The transmission ended, leaving the human command staff to prepare for a battle unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Captain Sue Martin looked at the approaching Council Armada through her quantum-enhanced perception. They're beautiful in their own way, she said quietly. All those different species, working together for what they believe is the greater good. They're not evil, Rodriguez agreed. They're just afraid of change, They've maintained galactic stability for thousands of years by preventing any species from evolving too quickly. But evolution can't be stopped, Ron said, feeling the truth of it across multiple probability states. It can only be delayed or redirected. And now it's time to show them what human evolution looks like when it's unleashed, Commander Foster added. As the Council Armada approached firing range, the quantum-enhanced humans prepared to demonstrate capabilities that would redefine what it meant to be alive, intelligent, and free in a universe where consciousness itself could bend the laws of physics. The final battle was about to begin, but it wouldn't be fought with weapons and shields. It would be fought with the power to choose which version of reality would become permanent, and humanity had become very good at making that choice.